Hey there, fellow devlog connoisseurs. Welcome to another Maskborne devlog. It's been about a month since the last one, I think. And something that's going to be a little bit different about this one is usually our devlogs are very structured. They're actually fully scripted. And I don't read the script, but I use it as a guide. But we've done so much since the last devlog. And the last devlog was exclusively focused on water. We actually chose to skip a lot of the development work that we had done. Well, didn't skip it. We just didn't show it in the previous devlog because we wanted to focus on the water. So a little more off the cuff. I have my notes over here about what we've been doing, and let's just get into it. So the very first thing that we actually did, which is now 2 months ago, was an audio system for Godot, or for our game in Godot. And so what the audio system allows us to do is tweak all the sort of relevant parameters for sound effects on different surfaces. So we basically created this dictionary of surfaces. Like you could have wood, grass, water, rocks, whatever it may be, right? And whenever the character interacts with those elements, say runs on the ground and the ground is made of wood, this system automatically detects it and then swaps out that audio. And so we've done that for all of the movement, but also the attacks. So, we register when an attack happens, what is the surface, what is the corresponding sound that we want to play. And now this tool does a bunch of different things. We can effectively create our final audio, the sound effects and everything in this tool. The reason this came about was because we looked at a bunch of other tools, and Emilia and I, neither of us are sound people, right? We've never really done a lot of sound, definitely not music. Some sound effects here and there, but not a lot. And the whole idea of like a different tool, learning a different tool was just a bit daunting. So we created a minimal tool that works in Godot so we can sort of author everything in one place. If it's a good idea or not, I don't know yet. I guess we'll see, but at least it's pretty solid and it works for what we needed to, especially it being interactive and can change dynamically based on the surface, right? Another thing we did was, let me see here, a quick heal animation. That we have that, gotta have that, right? So next thing. But a more exciting thing was implementing a, let's call it real-time post-processing tool or node, I guess, for the editor and at runtime. So we've had a tool before, which was just color correction and a slight vignette, like this vignette tool. And it worked fine, but it didn't work in the editor. So whenever we were, creating a scene, we had to run the game to see what was the effect of our, especially the color correction, but also the vignette. And we were back and forth a little bit about this because we'd also been testing out the world environment node in Godot. The problem with that node is that it's heavy. I think, right now our game on our test machines runs at like 200 FPS. As soon as we load in the world environment node, it runs at like 100 FPS or 110. And so it tanks performance quite considerably. But one thing that we really wanted from the world environment node were the tone mapping and bloom tools. And so we already have this semi-custom, quite performative glow on both the player and the enemies in the world that we can tweak. But we wanted something more general to bring more, let's call it volumetric lighting into the world, right? Have light bleed over edges. And the best way to do that is with bloom. But we couldn't use the world environment node. But luckily, I think about a week before that, I had been testing some additions to our UI. We'll get to the UI a little bit later, but I had been testing some additions to that and how to figure this whole thing out. And what we ended up doing is what we're doing for background blur in the UI as well. So for all of our parallax layers, all of the fake depth of field that we're creating in the foreground and the background, right? We're using sub viewports that we are blurring. We're doing like this 2-pass Gaussian blur, horizontal, vertical, makes it really nice, but it's not the lightest system in the world. But for the UI, what I figured out was you can take the image, essentially you take a real-time image of the viewport, shrink it down. I think we shrink it down to like 1/16 of the original size of the image, whatever that is from full HD to that. Take that image, right? So that's the new image. And then we just bilinearly scale that up. What that does is it allows us to interpolate all the different pixels in between and gives you really nice soft blur for 0 cost. Like it's actually 0. It's not actually 0, but it's basically 0. I think it cost us 1 FPS to do in the UI. So I took that system and I applied that to our new custom bloom solution, bloom, glow, whatever you want to call it. Exactly the same approach, right? We just store a couple of different points where it's like, let's say it's a 1/16 or an 1/8 or a 1/4, and then we can interpolate between those. So you effectively get kind of like a blur of the image, and then we just composite that on top. Almost like color dodge in Photoshop, but not as intense, right? Just to get that bloom effect. Combine that with the tone mapping that we took from the world environment node, and that gives us pretty free bloom that's quite performative. And I think looks fairly decent. It's not as smooth as the bloom that you get with the normal world environment node, but by saving 99 FPS, I think that that's gonna work for us. So let's see, what else do we have? We did hazards and a respawn system and breakable walls. So those were 3 big things while we were doing test levels. So immediately started doing some test levels and very quickly found out we were missing a bunch of stuff. So we added those, and that really allows us to play around with the levels a lot more than compared to what we were used to before, right? So really good tools to add. Created a platform, right, for the water. As you know from the previous devlog, if you watched that, all about water. We got really inspired by like Ghibli, doing this sort of Ghibli style water. And one of the things that we wanted out there were platforms. So we created static platforms as well as bouncy platforms. When you jump on them, it triggers a little animation, boop, rings come out from the center of it. Just a nice little touch. Right, another big thing is character redesign. Let's call it that. We've been wanting to do something with the character for a while. The character that we have had up until this point has just been that, dressed in white with a few stripes and legs, I guess. But it was missing something. So we did a lot of sketches actually and ended on the design that we have now. It's more regal and the shape of the face has changed, right? It changes the look and the feel of the character. It was a little more squished before. I feel like it's more feminine now, and it's more regal. And then we added like this special symbol in the middle of the mask, which we're not going to get into now. It has story implications for later in the game. Did that, but that also meant that all of the animations had to be redone. This is something that we knew was coming, right? Because the animations that have had up until this point have been good, but kind of placeholdery, right? They were like some of the first tests we did when we immediately just started getting into Procreate. So we knew we had to remake them. So this was the perfect time to do it. And I think it turned out pretty great. To that, we added one new attack animation, or so like replace the existing attack animation. We wanted something really fast and agile for the attack. It has to feel satisfying and it has to look good, obviously. We haven't done the up and the down attack yet. That is coming. But I think we sort of hit the style that we want, pure combat-wise, from, it's called a melee attacks. I think we're going to go with that and just continue in that direction, actually. Now to yet another big thing. And this is what I'm talking about. We did a lot of stuff these past couple months. And, right, the big thing here now are Boundlings. I have lost track of what we sort of publicly shared when it came to Boundlings. They're tiny creatures that you create and equip. And they're sort of like part of your loadout that you go into the world with. We've tried to simplify this, and I think we've reworked the system 6 or 7 times by this point. And I'm fairly happy with where we are now. It's very different from the first iteration though. So the brief overview of what Boundlings are right now, I'm hoping this doesn't change again, because we've changed it many times now. But effectively, we've split Boundlings into 2 categories. There are your boons, and then there are your summons. The boons are your more passive Boundlings, and the summons are your active Boundlings. So the boons do what boons do? I don't know. They bestow some kind of blessing on the player, right? Whether it's increased attack power, movement speed, it could be like knockback reduction, stealth, I don't know. The passive stuff that you don't need to worry about, it's just effects that are on your player. You know, you could extend it to auto pickup of ingredients and coins, or generate more soul when you defeat an enemy, right? That's the passive stuff. It's the category where we're gonna have the most, and I think it's the category that's gonna allow you to customize your player and your playstyle the most. Now, there's also gonna be the summons, and these are your active Boundlings. The reason they're active is because you need to actually activate them in order to use them in the world or during combat. So what we've come up with is 3 buttons, right? So they're going to be mapped to 3 buttons, and it's probably something you unlock throughout the game. In the beginning, you'll have 1, then you'll have 2, and then you'll have 3 slots. And I don't know about button mapping yet, we'll have to see. But essentially, these are active abilities that you activate. So some of the things that we've talked about so far could be when your soul meter is full, you can do this explosive attack. Imagine the Spartan Rage from God of War, where Kratos, he just like explodes, and when he's in like this Spartan Rage mode, right, that has like an effect, and then he attacks enemies. Probably not the attack part where you're boosted, but I like the idea of like this soul explosion. So it could be something like that, or it could be an activated counter that burns part of your soul. It could be a one-hit shield allowing you to tank the first hit of an attack, for example. That might be too OP, I don't know. But that's the idea right now for Boundlings. And I like that, and I think that's gonna stick. One other sort of improvement, let's say, on Boundlings has to do with evolutions. Before, I think we called them upgrades. And, you know, you have once you've unlocked the Boundling, it's in your inventory. Then you can craft it, and then you can upgrade it. And so what we started thinking about was more like this, gotta catch them all, you know? So each Boundling, I'm hoping it's gonna be all of them, but I don't know how much work that's gonna be yet, can essentially be evolved or upgraded. So the first time you create it, you need a set of ingredients, right? You sit by the bonfire soot, and that's where you unlock, and that's where you create them. Once they've been created, you can upgrade them or evolve them. You just need other ingredients. You'll probably need like a larger quantity of the ingredients. Maybe it'll be different ingredients, more rare ingredients. It could really be a lot of different things. But essentially, that's an evolution of the existing abilities or the existing boons. It just sort of boosts that. That's the idea right now. So think of Charmander, right? Going into Charmeleon and Charizard. That, but not with like, a bunch of different attacks. But essentially that. Now, let me just real quick go back to the whole UI thing, right? A bit of a spoiler with the blur, I guess. But, we did that blur background. Great, that worked for our bloom system. And it's probably something I'm going to experiment with for our overall depth of field system to see if we can optimize that even further, actually. It is fairly optimized, but I think it could run faster if we take this approach. Right, UI. This is probably like my personal demon. I've done a lot of web development, and I've done a lot of UI work. Not to say that I'm like an expert in UI UX, but I've done a lot of that work. And so with all of that knowledge, going into this lacking a lot of the technical knowledge and the very specific Godot knowledge on how to approach it with like all the different data layers that need to speak together, how the visuals are done, all that stuff. It's been daunting and it still stressed me out a little bit. But we have a sort of working UI now. You know, we did a prototype UI that was functional, didn't look great. Then we did another version of that was still in the prototype phase, but like with upgraded visuals and looked a bit nicer, that had the sort of style we were going for. Got some really great feedback on our Discord about what to do, how to change some things, how to add some things, and how to just balance it overall. So now I think we've ended up with a style that we both like, that looks good, and I think will be functional. Again, the visuals I'm not that concerned about. It's all the other stuff. And right now the ingredients page is done. That's about it. But I'm trying to build it up in a modular way because, you know, on the left side of the UI we'll have the ingredients, which is like this grid slot. We'll be using that same grid for the Boundlings on the create menu as well as the equip menu. Right, so we can reuse that left panel. It just has to swap the type of data that's there. So I've been sitting with that for a few weeks now, trying to get that to work, and that works now. On the right hand side, you have your large overview of the thing that you're selecting or viewing. This could be an ingredient where it tells you what the ingredient is, but also the stats of the ingredient. Something I completely missed. Ingredients are now edible. Wow, yeah. This is something we actually talked about in the past, but didn't really know if we wanted to do, and I think we're doing it now. So essentially, before we had talked about these temporary consumables, I was like, that's going to be annoying with Boundlings. If they're temporary, you're going to have to craft them all the time. We're doing that with ingredients, exactly like in Breath of the Wild, right? Where you have these ingredients that you can consume for like a tiny boost to something, health, speed, attack power, something. I think this means that we'll probably have to develop like a quick select menu, like a very simple one, just like up, left, right on the D-pad, for example, to quickly consume during combat or when you're out in the world. So you don't have to go to the inventory, select the thing, eat the thing. That's just going to be annoying. But anyway, on the right-hand side, big overview, that's where you're going to be able to look at your ingredient, look at your selected boundling, and then later, that's where you're going to be able to look at your equip menu. And so that I need to figure out the UX and all of that. But I think we're getting fairly close actually. And yeah, UI-wise, in a decent spot, but it's always like, I'm always nervous when I open that scene right now because yeah, there are so many things I still don't know. And finally, I think the last big thing is that we are working on a teaser. We're working on a teaser so we can finally get the Steam page live. I know a lot of people have been asking about this, and I've been very reluctant about the Steam page for a while. Because this project started as a way for my wife and I to have fun, get into game development, and make a game that we think would be interesting to play. As I've gotten more into indie development and the indie development scene, you know, the kinds of content that I consume and I'm exposed to is very commercial. Like it's commercially oriented, and there's nothing wrong with making a game that you want to sell. I mean, obviously we would like to sell the game, right? But yeah, it's just stressed me out. It still stresses me out, this whole like marketing focus, wish list focus, next fest, all this stuff. It's all a bit much. So I've reluctantly sort of held off on the Steam page. But I think we're at a point now where we've almost had 6 months of development. In a week or two, I think we'll actually hit that. And I think it's time. So we're doing our best to put together a teaser. Not a full trailer or anything, but just like a reveal teaser, I guess, showing some really cool shots of this current state of the game. The nice thing about doing this teaser is that it's forced us to take a serious look at some of the systems that I've built so far, because I've just built them with the mindset of we need to get this to work and we need to get this to work fast, but it still needs to look good. The problem is once you start using anything in production, right, things just break or they're not user-friendly, right? So you need that constant back and forth. That's one of the nice things about doing this teaser, is that it actually shows us which systems are good and which systems really need some improvement. So that's been a lot of fun. But all that is to say that, you know, we're working on a teaser so we can get the Steam page live. And yeah, I have nothing more on my list. The past 2 months have been pretty crazy. We've done a lot. I'm very proud of the water in the previous devlog, which you should definitely check out if you haven't watched yet. But there were just so many other things that we did as well that I couldn't, you know, fit into a devlog about water. Now, I think excitingly for me as well, you know, this whole 6-month milestone is coming up very soon. And I don't know, about a month ago, I think I started prepping, maybe 2 months ago, prepping a more like script for a 6-month update. So we're going to be doing a 6-month update where we take a look at a lot of the systems, probably not super in depth, but like just the important ones and the current state of everything. This was more of a, I really wanted to get an update out because we've just done so much. And I think that's about it. So I want to say thank you so much for watching. You know, if you enjoy these devlogs, consider clicking the little subscribe button somewhere. I'd really appreciate it. And then hopefully I will see you next time.